Hello again and welcome to the top of Mont Ventoux. This is the Giant of Provence and the riders setting off this morning. They can see this mountain all day and they know they must finish up here. Well, the only good thing we can say is the snow has stopped, because although it's sunny, it is very, very cold with the wind chill factor probably no more than 5 degrees Celsius, and the wind is gusting at up to 60 miles an hour. The rides will know today they really have a battle on their hands. This is the overall situation. At the top is Lance Armstrong, the defending champion, 4:14 ahead of Jan Ullrich, Christophe Moreau, Mark Wouters still right there. Peter Luttenberger looks as though he's returning to form at last, now riding for Oncé is 5th. Of the other big names, Alano 13th, and we've hardly seen him. Alex Zuller the same must be said. Fernando Escartini, he's a climber. Today he's going to have to come out. Marco Pantani now up to 24th, Paul. This is the start of the climb, and there's some familiar faces and there are others missing, including Alex Zuller in trouble.
Well, Alex Zuller does not look good at all. He is in serious difficulty at the back of the group. With him it is Leonardo Pipoli, another man suffering, the big climber from Spain, Fernando Escartin, and all of this because of the pressure on the front of the pack from two riders from US Postal, Tyler Hamilton and Kevin Livingston. Well, in fact, Tyler Hamilton has gone backwards as we speak.
And there's a number of riders gone out of the race, including Tom Steels and Marcel Vust and also Cham McRae. So 3 interesting names are out. Marco Pantani looks to be in a little bit of trouble here now, as Lance Armstrong with just one teammate left with him, and Jan Ullrich always watching. The other interesting rider here again, Paul, is Yoshiba Bolocki.
Well, the young rider from Festina there in 4th position in the blue jersey is a major revelation of this year's cycling season. In this group as well is Richard Virenque, and riding across the gap there, Roberto Heras. Marco Pantani, Phil, well, I don't think he's back on complete form right now because he's getting dropped off the back of the group, as is Laurent Jalabert, who wears number 51 for France.
Well, the climb this year starts at Bédoin, and on the rest day of the Tour de France they had a tourist routier. That was a touring cycle ride up the mountain here. The wind was so strong the police actually closed the mountain. Happily, although the wind is still very strong, it has eased just that little bit. But as we continue on the climb here now with Kevin Livingstone doing all of the work to try and give Lance Armstrong a great sight of the climb when we get up towards Chalet Reynard. Zuller has lost almost a minute now to Armstrong's group. Bolocki is hanging on. Richard Virenque looks cool. There's Heras, come back a little bit. And also in this group too, we've got Alexander Vinokurov, and that's a little bit of a surprise, although he is a reasonable climber.
Well, he was in that earlier breakaway, one of the last survivors. This man too is the man that France hopes will ride high in the overall standings, Christophe Moreau. He's actually a little further down the slopes at the moment with a couple of his teammates. One of them, the very good climber there, Felix Garcia Casas. But Marco Pantani, Phil, he's been dropped about 3 times so far, and he keeps pulling himself back up to this group of Lance Armstrong.
He doesn't seem quite able to answer to the change in pace. And the same can be said of Laurent Jalabert, because he has just rejoined that group, more or less. He's been dropping back as well since we left Bédoin.
Well, the difficult thing about this climb of the Mont Ventoux is because of all the different changes in the gradient. It gets very steep in parts and then it levels off, and it's on the steeper parts that I think Marco Pantani is coming back. Sorry for the picture breakup, but it is very difficult up here on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux, as we now see the work here being done by Kevin Livingston, slowly but surely pulling all of these riders back into the fold. That Kelme rider there is Santiago Botero. He was in a leading group, Phil, of 9 riders who got away on the first climb of the day.
Well, he's turning out to be an amazing cyclist, is Santiago Botero. We've seen him already finish second after that massive breakaway of more than 200 kilometres. And clearly he's not too tired yet. These are still the lower slopes of Mont Ventoux as we head up towards Chalet Reynard, and then we turn very sharp left and out onto the bottom slopes of this mountain. Again, Kevin Livingstone doing a terrific job here. Super domestique, setting the pace for Armstrong, a pace which indeed is hurting some illustrious names today on the Tour de France.
One man missing, Abraham Alano, nowhere to be seen on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux here at the moment. But what a great job being done there by that man on the front, Kevin Livingston. A little further down the slopes, the man who leads the King of the Mountains competition after that very long breakaway up to Hautecam, Javier Ochoa. He too, Phil, is in difficulty on the slopes of this massive mountain.
And he did that brilliant ride in the Pyrenees where he just hung on to win the stage there ahead of Lance Armstrong. Well, there was a breakaway today of 9, which led for much of the way till we got to the slopes of this climb. An attack here now by Heras, and a response immediately by Lance Armstrong, who now looks as though he's going to have to be left to do it himself. But the way Heras, when he saw Armstrong counter the move, he sat up.
He knew exactly what was coming next. He decided, well, Armstrong's not going to let me ride off the front, so I might as well wait for him. Richard Virenque has responded there in 3rd position, and so has Jan Ullrich, riding himself back up to this group. Santiago Botero there, Phil, is still in the group, but you know, Marco Pantani has disappeared once again. So has Kevin Livingston. After a great job done by him for the team, he will now just have to survive on the slopes of this great mountain.
Armstrong is cadence, the talking point of the Tour de France. He pedals twice as quickly as anybody else. Again, it looks as though Laurent Jalabert is in a bit of bother. He's coming off the back of the group after those accelerations. We are not far away now from Chaly Reynard, but you see the long sweeping climb as it goes up towards the observatory. Well, and this is it. This is Chaly Reynard.
The weather looks fantastic, but I tell you one thing, it is not hot up here. And very often we've come up this mountain in the past, Phil, and it's been over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Today it is actually very cold. And after seeing the summit of this climb yesterday, I really cannot believe that the bike riders are coming up here today bathed in sunshine.
Well, what an incredible audience, a grandstand high on this mountain of Mont Ventoux, awaiting the arrival of the leaders of the Tour, and the maillot jaune of Armstrong is right there in #1 position. And I must say, Paul, that the man who has yo-yoed off the back again, but is still chasing, is Pantani.
Well, Pantani and Laurent Jalabert, those two riders, I think, deciding today to ride at their own rhythm, not to lose too much time at all, just to try and keep themselves in contact. And for Marco Pantani, despite the fact he's not stayed in this yellow group of Lance Armstrong, he in fact is moving up in the overall standings. But in fact, Phil, once again, the Pirate is coming back to the leading group on the road. The last time check we were given was 6 seconds, but it certainly isn't that right now. He's onto the tail of Armstrong.
It's amazing. This man has dangled off the back by as much as 12 to 15 seconds. And now on the steepest part of the climb, he has pedalled smooth as you like onto the back of this group. And he's now hooked up with Roberto Heras, Lance Armstrong, and this again a very, very worthwhile breakaway.
The tempo on the front being set by the man who has 5 times won the King of the Mountains competition at the Tour de France, Richard Virenque. He is a man from this area of France, and he certainly would like to do something special on the slopes of this mountain, because the men who have won here in the past, Phil, have all been cycling legends. They are names that we write stories about. Merckx has won up here, Charlie Gall has won up here, Thévenet, Poulidor. And the man who wins today, everybody will remember him.
They most certainly will, and the majority of the winners up here are on the race too, to watch how the modern time climbers tackle the slopes of Ventoux. Richard Virenque is a proud mountain climber. He's finding a little bit of resistance this year though in his search to wear the polka dot jersey, still on the shoulders of Javier Ochoa, but not by the end of this day, because he's lost ground a bit today. Virenque takes gratefully a drink there off the spectators. Balocchi is on the left, but now an attack by Marco Pantani. I think Heras has tried to jump on his tail, but this is a very determined and unexpected move.
Unbelievable. This man has been dropped about 6 times so far on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux, and every time has fought his way back. This is an attack with just sheer courage, Phil. I don't think he has the legs to go off the front of the group. He just wants to show everybody in the world the Pirate is back. This man was regarded as the best climber in the world. That attack does not come to anything much at all here, because the whole of the group has come back together once again.
And the man who recovered first was Yoshiba Balocchi. This incredible surprise is having a great season. But another attack immediately as he got them sensed on his back wheel. This time Heras isn't going to follow, as now Pantani realises he's got them on the defensive. He kicks again.
Well, Heras is taking up the chase once more. Now the chase behind him is going to come from Jan Ullrich. Ullrich today, Phil, is in a great shape. He, in fact, is riding himself back into the Tour de France. He's a long way down on Lance Armstrong in the overall standings right now, but we still have an awful long way to go. The Pirate has flown, but this is not the Pirate of old. You know, he hasn't opened up the gap immediately, and these bike riders are able now to respond to his attacks.
And just now they don't need to respond, because Pantani is 24th overall and there's still a lot of ground to make up. Armstrong riding a very canny race here, as he did on the climb of Hautacam. He let the other riders attack first. Now, is he planning to finish it off himself, as this group once again has lassoed the Pirate and brought him back?
Well, the reason they won't let him go, Phil, is obviously he is a long way down in the overall standings, but everybody wants to win this stage. This is the stage of the Mont Ventoux, the Géant de Provence, the biggest mountain with one of the biggest reputations in the sport of international cycling. Marco Pantani, Phil, he's gone again. He keeps hitting them, and one moment or another, they're going to let him go.
Well, he's looking for 10.5 minutes. He won't get that in one mountain climb, of course, but a minute or so's gain right now will make this man a real threat in this year's Tour de France, especially with the very difficult days still to come in the Alps.
Well, he must be super motivated by the presence of Charlie Gall here at the Tour de France. Charlie Gall, the Luxembourger known as the Angel of the Mountains, was the first man to win here on the summit of the Mont Ventoux, and that was an awful long time ago. But these two have hit it off together. They appreciate each other's riding styles, and Marco Pantani may well be trying to do something very special here today. And if he can win, well, it will be a remarkable performance for a man out of competition for a whole 11 months.
I couldn't agree more, and the message coming in from Johan Brunel there to Lance Armstrong, who's having a word in his little radio as we look at Santiago Botero here, trying to get on terms with Pantani, and Botero for me is one of the finds of this year's event.
What a great bike rider, strange background as well, as Armstrong now accelerates, goes on the right-hand side of the road. They all look the other way. Nobody could respond to that attack. He caught them napping. You know, it's as if he's being radio controlled by his team manager, Johan Brunel. The other guys here were absolutely on the rivet, and although Jan Ullrich looked pretty good, he cannot lift the pace.
Well, that was an incredible attack, and you're right, Ullrich was flat out. He's gone straight past Botero as if he's not moving at all, and he's now pedaling up to Marco Pantani. There's no doubt he's going to catch him at the way he's riding here. Armstrong chose his moment and just flew away from the field with no show of resistance at all from Ullrich.
Well, the amazing thing is, Phil, look at his pedaling style there. He is so much lower than anybody else on the slopes of this climb. Even Marco Pantani, who is a magnificent climber, Armstrong is pedaling around about 15 to 20 revolutions per minute, much faster than he is. He's now almost on the tail of the Pirate, and I wonder will he go straight past to try and storm his dominance on this Tour de France. He really is turning himself into being one of the best climbers in the world.
Well, the view up here at 2.5 kilometres to go is sensational from Mont Ventoux. You can see for 100 miles around. He goes past the Pirate. He almost invites the Pirate to come and join him on the back wheel. He's looking to see the damage he's doing. I think the man he wants to hurt most is Jan Ullrich just now, and he's got himself the gap here. He let Ullrich set the pace. Now the gap has opened again as Lance just keeps this interminable rhythm here. Once more the Pirate, for not the first time on Mont Ventoux, is now on the defensive.
Well, I think he snapped him as well. He just accelerated. This was not an attack by Lance Armstrong, just a mere acceleration. But a mere acceleration when your name is Lance Armstrong from Austin, Texas, is going to hurt anybody's legs. The Pirate, though, Phil, is fighting his way back. Today he is digging really deep into the suitcase of courage.
Well, do you think Lance was riding a mountain bike with the gear he's pedaling up this hill here, and so quickly as well? Pantani noticeably slower, but has ridden back up to the back wheel of Armstrong, who hasn't got back in that saddle, I don't think, since he broke away. He is just riding a rhythm. Remember that Lance has seen all of the mountains in this year's Tour de France, one way and another, because he takes his preparation very seriously.
Including this one. He had a bad time on this one in the Dauphiné Libéré when he was blown away by his own teammate, his teammate Tyler Hamilton, who went on to win the Dauphiné Libéré. Armstrong came to this bike race. This mountain was a big fear for him, but he has trained it 3 times, Phil, since the Dauphiné Libéré, and he is looking now very much at ease. He's waiting for some kind of attack now to come from Marco Pantani, but for Armstrong, certainly he has to win here. This is one of the monuments of cycling.
Well, because of the high winds, there is no banner across the road, no finish line structure at all. It won't be that evident to the riders as they come up towards the summit. You see the flags, you can see how strong the wind is blowing, and the gaps are opening now on Ullrich and co.
Well, the Pirate happy there to stay on the wheel of Armstrong. Armstrong looking over his shoulder. Every time they come round a corner, they're expecting the finish to be there.
This time it should be, as they take it wide now. The finish is only meters away here. We're a bit obstructed by the motorbike, but Armstrong is on the left and Pantani is on the right, and they're coming up to the line now, and it's almost as if Armstrong is not making a big effort here, and Pantani is determined, and Pantani crosses the line. It almost looks as though Lance Armstrong was not interested in winning the stage.
Well, look at this. The next man to come up is going to be Josiba Belocchi, the big revelation here from Festina. He's with Jan Ullrich. Ullrich struggling up the last incline of this big mountain, Phil.
Well, this has been an outstanding ride by Yoshiba Bolocki. He's no longer a shock in the Tour now. He's going to climb up into the top 3 or 4 riders. He is over, taken time out of Jan Ullrich, who comes over in 4th place. 29 seconds. There's the result of the climb then. Pantani, same time as Armstrong. Botero did very well to come home in 5th. And Roberto Heras getting there in 6th place, 48 seconds down. But you know, that was an incredible ride by Pantani and a sensational ride by Lance Armstrong. And the overall now